A good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos, Pinchas. I just want to begin this Shabbos message with a tremendous thank you for this past Monday night's Zoom gala, which touched myself, my wife, our family in such a profound kind of way. It was such a beautiful evening and such a beautiful tribute to us and a beautiful way to send us off. And I wanted to express our hakaras hatov, our gratitude for those that moved and shaped and made sure that this happened, those that participated on a financial level, those that bought sections and letters and verses in the Torah, those that were supportive in every way, those that came, just showed up to watch and to enjoy, and to those that shared their sentiments with us. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And it's impossible to express how much it really means to us and how much each and every one of you means to us. Thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. This week's Parshas Pinchas. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, he was a zealot. He saw Zimri, one of the princes of the tribes, walking through the community, walking through his tribal area with his girlfriend, Cosby, and nobody's saying a word. Everybody's quiet. And Pinchas is watching this and he's saying, what's going on? This is what's crazy. The people of his tribe are saying nothing. Other leaders are saying nothing. Moshe Rabbeinu himself, for a variety of reasons, but Moshe says nothing. And Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen says, this is not going to happen. And he gets up and he goes and he kills the two of them. And the Torah tells us that Bekanu is kinasi, that because he was jealous for God, so God gave him brisi shalom, he gave him his covenant of peace, the highest order, the highest reward that a person could possibly receive. And then our rabbis go to town to tell us that Pinchas was a great guy. Pinchas is amazing. But don't learn from Pinchas. You can't be a vigilante. You can't go and do what Pinchas did. You have to be careful about vigilantism, because vigilantism very often is not a reflection of the way you're feeling about God. It's really a reflection of the way you're feeling inside yourself. You have this internal kind of battle going on, and therefore the only way to quiet that battle is to act out. But it's not really because you're doing it for God, you're really doing it for you. Very often vigilantism is really just a reflection of the anger that a person has, and there's no place, no way to requite that, no place to put that. Very often vigilantism is really just a reflection of a person's own anxieties and a person's own shortcomings. Like a reformed smoker, a person who stopped smoking, he's the one that when somebody lights up a cigarette, he starts to cough and to hack and to roll on the floor as if he's going to die. It's not because smoke really bothers him. It's because he still wants to smoke, because he hasn't finished with his own battle yet. He hasn't won his own battle, and therefore he needs to react to this in order to be able to push it away from himself. Very often that's a reflection of a vigilante. That's a description of a vigilante. And that's why our rabbis go to town to tell us, don't become a vigilante. You can understand Pinchas, do not become a vigilante. Okay, shkach, then what do I have to learn from this parsha? Parsha Pinchas, one of the most important parshas in the Torah. It's a very important event that took place in the Jewish people. We make such a big deal out of it, but I have nothing to learn from it. If I have nothing to learn from it, then what's it here? Why is it in such a prominent place? Plus, Pinchas wasn't really the first hero in the Jewish people, a hero to stop them from near death. Aaron did it after Korach. Moshe did it after the Egel Azav. Nachshon ben Aminadav walked into the sea and saved the Jewish people. The sea split after we walked into it. We have plenty of amazing heroes. What was so special about Pinchas? So I'll tell you, I think the secret lies in verse 11, the second verse of this week's parasha. God spoke to Moshe saying, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas ben Elazar, the son of Aaron, the priest. And it goes on to tell us his yichus, and it goes on to tell us of what he did. And if you look at the word Pinchas, there's a little asterisk next to Yud. And it says in the margin, if you look in the Torah, you'll see this. It says Yud Ze'ira, a small Yud. There are times in the Torah where it says to elongate certain letters, to shrink other letters. And wherever it elongates or shrinks a letter, it's because it's trying to teach us a message. What's the message of the small Yud by Pinchas? That the name Pinchas is written with a small letter. It makes it stand out. Because what it's telling us is that who is Pinchas? He was a kleine Yid. He was a Yud Ze'ira. He was just a regular person. He was a guy. He wasn't a Kohen Gadol. He had great yichus, came from a great family. But he himself was nobody yet. He was just a person. Moshe Rabbeinu did great things, but Moshe Rabbeinu got paid the big bucks for that. Moshe Rabbeinu was the leader of the Jewish people. Aaron was a leader of the Jewish people. Nachshon ben Aminadav was a leader of the Jewish people. Pinchas was not a leader. Pinchas was just a pashut person. It wasn't his responsibility. And in the face of a terrible calamity, Pinchas rose to the occasion, he rose to the challenge, and out of obscurity, he rose to save the Jewish people. Without expectations, he achieved greatness. And that's true gadlus. It wasn't because he had a job, it wasn't because he had a responsibility, but it was because he felt the responsibility for the Jewish people. And that's what Pinchas can teach us. It's not about what he did. What he did was in the context of his life, in the context of his time, the context of the crime that was being done. But that's not what I have to learn from that. What I have to learn from Pinchas is to be able to muster the strength to be able to rise to the occasion. But the question, of course, is, where did Pinchas get that strength from? Where did Pinchas get that ability to muster the strength to be able to rise to the occasion? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Chia, bar Abba, Rabbi Simoi. There were 3 advisors that Paro had when he decided to throw the babies into the Nile. The first advisor, who was Bilam agreed with Paro. He gave him the eitzah. He actually gave him the idea. He told him you should throw them into the Nile because their leader is going to come their leader is going to lead them to water. We saw water, and he said, okay, so drown him in the water. Little did he realize that it meant that he was going to come from the water, whatever. But Bilam came up with this idea that this is what should be done to the Jewish people, and therefore Bilam died in a war against the Jewish people. Yisro, who looked at it and said, not going to happen. I'm not going to be involved in this. This is wickedness. This is terrible. He picked himself up and he ran away. He merited to have descendants sitting in the Lishkas HaGazos, in the chamber of hewn stone, in the Sanhedrin, leading the Jewish people. Eov was the third advisor, Job. And Eov, who kept quiet, said nothing. He didn't say yay, he didn't say nay, he didn't support, he didn't run away. He sat there quiet. So Eov suffered. So rabbis say, where's the midah k'nei midah? Where's the measure for measure? Why should he suffer? He kept quiet, he didn't say anything. He didn't support. He didn't run away, but he didn't support it. So why should he suffer so much? Because what God was saying to Eov is that you can't just sit by and be idle. There are times where you can't do anything. There are times where you know that even if you say something, you're going to get into trouble. There's nothing you can do, but you can at least feel. You can be alive. You can krechts. You can fetch. Sometimes you don't have it in your hands. You're not in the position to be able to do something. But you're always in the position to be able to feel. You're always in the position to be able to krechts, to be able to fetch, to be able to feel something. And that's what God was sending to Eov. The message he was sending to him is that now you're going to see what it's like to krechts and to fetch. Now you're going to feel pain, and you're going to have no choice but to cry out because of that pain. And this is what we can distill. This is what we can learn from Pinchas. What was the thing that got Pinchas to be able to rise to the occasion? Is that Pinchas felt. Pinchas looked at the situation, and he didn't just analyze it intellectually. He didn't say, there's something weird going on here. It's a Jewish guy walking with a non-Jewish girl. That's not so nice. Pinchas looked at him, he said, this is a tragedy, a travesty against the Rebbeinu Shalom, against the master of the universe. Pinchas looked at it and he felt it. His heart broke when he watched this. Bekanayas kinasi. He felt jealous for God. He felt God's pain. It wasn't that he was angry at this guy that he did something wrong, but that he felt the pain that God would feel. Pinchas was able to krechts. And then when he krechts, when he kvetched, when he felt that pain, that motivated him to say, okay, now I got to figure out something to do. Okay, the way Pinchas dealt with it, that's not the way to go, except in Pinchas's time. It was beautiful. He got the Bris Shalom for it. But in our time, there are other rules, other laws, other things that come into play. We couldn't do that. But there are things that we could do. There are ways to remedy situations. There are ways to rise to the occasion. There are ways to be able to do things and to accomplish incredible things. But first we have to feel. We have to commit ourselves not just to watch things, not just to analyze them intellectually, but to feel them. When someone is sick, not just to watch that they're sick, but to feel that. When someone is suffering, when someone is rejoicing, not just to intellectually understand, oh, they're making a bar mitzvah, oh, they're making a wedding, but to feel that inside, to feel their ups, to feel their downs. Because when we feel it, that's step number one to motivating us to do something for them, to do something to help them, to be able to uplift them in some kind of way, to be able to rise to the occasion. To be able to rise to the occasion, we have to feel the occasion. And that's what we learn from Pinchas. We learn from Pinchas is how to feel and therefore how to rise. The way we rise has to be appropriate. The way we rise has to be thought out carefully. But we have to feel and we have to rise and we have to act and we have to do things. And that's the message of Pinchas. Vigilantes of the world unite? Not necessarily. If it's not the right thing to do, don't unite. But at least feel. At least be emotional. At least feel for other people. And when we feel for other people, then we'll figure out the appropriate way to act, the appropriate way to rise to the occasion, and the appropriate way to affect changes that will affect not only their lives, but will affect the entire world. We should have a beautiful, wonderful, amazing Shabbos. And I just want a quick commercial. You know, we're living in a time where we are feeling sorely disconnected from each other. Those that are going to shul already in the outside minion are feeling a little bit better, but having to relate to people through masks, you're really just davening together. Everybody goes home afterwards. There's very little chance to relate to people. We have our friends, we have our few friends, but I would imagine that Monday night, even when people were seeing people on Zoom, they hadn't seen them in months. Like, oh, they're looking good, or they don't look so good. Because we're not really interacting as much as we normally would. So I'm going to tell you that there is ways to interact. There are all kinds of ways to interact, but we've provided one very powerful way, and that's through Torah. By the shurim that are given on Zoom, by Rech shurim, my shurim, which will continue. Monday nights, Tuesday, my Gemara shurim. Our Sunday night get-together for the community, which is nothing more than just sitting and schmoozing. There's no agenda. We schmooze. Somebody has a question, they ask it. It's just a social time, a place and a time for people to see each other and to interact with each other. Most of the time we talk about what's going on with COVID, but it doesn't matter. We can talk about anything. And, you know, we were talking about current events the other night, but Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, that's what it's there for. Just for us to be able to get together a little bit. Some of us aren't going out of our houses. Some of us aren't going out of our houses as much. Some of us are going out of our houses, but not to the place that's going to lead us to other people. Torah is a tremendous ma'achid. Community is a tremendous thing that pulls us together. I encourage us to come to shiurim, come to classes, especially now when it has a chance and opportunity to be able to uplift us and to be able to connect us with other people. The Sunday night thing, join us on that. Whatever you want to call it, social hour, coffee hour, the town meeting, whatever it is, it's an opportunity for us to be able to interact with each other and to encourage everyone to join us on something so that we can continue to do what's really needed now, which is to continue to gel together and to reconstitute ourselves as a community. Have a wonderful, beautiful Shabbos.